So, when the you know what hits the fan, when natural disaster strikes, when the world plunges into darkness or madness or another Democrat administration, will you be prepared? Well, my next guest literally wrote you a manual to handle it all. He's a former Navy SEAL, a survival expert, and author of the book, A Navy SEAL's Bug and Guide, How to Turn Your House into the Safest Place on Earth. Joel Lambert joins me here in Nashville now.
Thank you.
And an important time for a book like this. There's always an important time, but I think especially now, a lot of Americans they're starting to kind of clue into the fact that we're not as safe as we think that we are, and the world is a place of madness, and we never know what's coming next.
I'm no longer the crazy prepper. Everyone wants to know.
Everybody's a prepper now. Everybody's a doomsday prepper now. But, there's a lot of connotations that come with that. People think, oh, you live in a bunker somewhere, and, you buy endless supplies of, space food and toilet paper. But what actually are some basic things that you write about in this book that the average person who considers themselves to be a normie should do to get themselves ready?
Well, that is the question. And to answer that, I'm going to start with the three big basics of survival and the five total aspects of survival. And those are, in order of importance, shelter, water, food. Those are the things you have to deal with when you're trying to survive a hostile environment. And then navigation, how to get where you're going to go, and communicating with rescue forces, with whoever it is that you might be having to interface with to get yourself out of the situation. So basically, we're just taking and making sure that all of those aspects are covered in our homes. Most of us these days, my grandparents, they had all the canning, and they had the garden, and they had the livestock. And then to these days, most people, they have some leftover takeout in the fridge and a bottle of ketchup and maybe a case of beer. That's not right. That's not going to last you very long if you can't get to the grocery store. We're dependent on the social infrastructure that's been created for us. And if something is to interrupt that, whether it's riots, a war, unrest, a weather event, an EMP, a disruption.
The grid goes down, a cyber attack. That's becoming increasingly more realistic.
Exactly. All these things, anything like that. A cyber attack, you think, well, my computer will go down, my cell phone won't work. Well, what about the pumping station that pumps your water? If that's not working, all of a sudden you turn on that tap, nothing's going to happen. Well, what are you going to do for water and for food and for shelter? So when I was doing Manhunt, this escape and evasion show on Discovery Channel, everyone was always asking me about bugging out. What's in my bug out bag? How do I bug out? What am I going to do?
What is bugging out, by the way, for those that are not clued into the lingo?
Well, this came out probably about 10 years ago in the interlap between what the public finds cool and what, military aspects of whatever is being shown on TV and stuff. And bugging out was the idea that if something bad happens, you have a bug out bag by the side of your door or in your trunk of your car. You grab that, you run out your house, and you have enough stuff to get along until you're able to navigate your way back or get to a safe house or something like that, which is the military version of that is escape and evasion. If something goes wrong, my operation goes completely south, everyone's dead but me, no communications, I'm out of my gun, they know where I'm at, and the pickup location has been compromised. Now for the next 3 days, I have to navigate and get to a new spot where they can come and get me. And that kind of instigated into the bugging out in the civilian world. So everyone was all excited about bugging out. And I always thought my show was pretty much about bugging out. This is the worst thing you can do. This is when everything has gone wrong. There's nothing else that can be done. You're completely screwed 6 ways from Sunday. What are you going to do? Then get away. But if you got your house and there's not a tornado barreling straight towards your house or a wildfire that's, licking at the edges of your property, stay in your house. You have shelter there. You have warmth. You have neighbors. You have an area you understand. You have some food, even if it's just some old takeout and a ketchup bottle. You have something, maybe a couple cans. You've got a tap that works. You've got all these things in place. You have my tools, your weapons. You have all these things. Why would you run away from that and try to reestablish all those things you just left? So the concept is build your house and your place where you live so that you can take care of your family. You can still bug out if you need to, but that's last resort. Prepare your house so that you've got enough food, you've got access to water, you have the things that you need. So if all of a sudden I can't go to the grocery store for 4 weeks, or the tap isn't going to turn on for a couple of weeks while we figure out this EMP situation or whatever's happening, or a tornado or something comes, we're going to be okay for a little while. And nobody before these last couple of generations had a problem with that. That was just normal life. And now that's not normal life anymore. And that makes us so vulnerable.
We are so dependent on the internet, and we are so dependent on the conveniences. And even more so than I would say 10 years ago. I mean, now we fail to even navigate without, the Google Maps or whatever. People don't know their way around, and it's become a crutch. And it's become a luxury crutch that most of us use on a daily basis, myself included.
Exactly. In fact, that's one of the first things that I recommend and that I've done with my family is we have paper atlases, in all of our vehicles and at each house, because just like you said, if the GPS goes up, some people won't even know how to get to the grocery store.
So the paper maps, I mean, that's something that I've heard about from some folks that are worried about things going down. Yeah. And to me, like, my last thing I'd be worried about is a map. Because I'd be thinking I can probably barely read a map and navigate myself somewhere. Like, I would be hard-pressed to navigate myself on a map. But you're saying that that's an important thing to have around.
Like a road atlas. You don't need to be like navigating, not, shooting map and compass and navigating through the woods for, 5 clicks to get to an extract zone. I'm talking about having a Thomas guide or an atlas so that if I had to drive to California to get my family or something, or if I just needed to go down the street to the store, or my neighbor's house that's, a little ways away that I'm used to using my GPS for, I can pull it up and I've got the map there. So I'm able to navigate in the area that I live in. That's a very important thing that I don't think people realize how dependent they are on their GPSs. Every car has got one now.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be hard pressed to find my way to another state without the phone.
Exactly.
That would be increasingly difficult for me and for many in my generation. I don't know what the hell Gen Z is going to do, because when Instagram and TikTok go down, I mean, they go into hysterics. So I can't even imagine. I feel a little bit more prepared because I am a millennial and I did grow up with like the early stages of the internet, right. But still I'm relying on it. We all are. In terms of the food that you need to have, are we talking like freeze-dried space food, or what would you suggest?
Well, that's another great question. And what I personally have, and I've always kind of had, is I have some MREs, meals ready to eat. They're bagged meals that you can just open up and you have a meal right there. Those are for immediate use. Like, I need food right now, or I'm running out of the house or something, and I need a meal I can grab with me that doesn't require any preparation. I can grab an MRE. Then I have several tubs of freeze-dried food, like Mountain House, just some boiling water, and it's good, nutritious food. And then past that, it's canned food. It's bulk floured rice, grains, meat in your freezer, things like that. Out here in Tennessee, we're in a lot better position than people in Los Angeles or Chicago or New York City. We have farmers, and like I get raw milk, and I have chickens and eggs, and I have a rancher that I get all my grass-fed beef from that's just right up the street. And those people are going to still sell to me when everyone's wanting food from them, because I'm friends with them. I've built community in the place that I live, and I have people that I buy from and that I support. And we're a farming area out here. However, if you don't have that luxury, or even if you do, you should have, a freezer stocked full of meat, stocked full of beef, some cans of stuff, some staples that you can cook up. It's very easy stuff. And in my book, I outline lots of meal plans and 3-month and 6-month food stockpiles. It's all simple things. Food storage is very important. You can't just, grab a bunch of food and then not expect the rats and the weevils and things like that to get into it. My grandmother, went through the Depression, she talked about, straining the boll weevils out of her flour before she could make cornbread, which is gross, but at least they had flour to make cornbread.
Right.
So, there's lots of food storage issues. Mylar is a great way to store food. I talk about all of that in the book.
Because, everybody's so afraid now of the microplastics getting into everything. So
those are terrible.
That's a big thing. I don't know if we were to come to the end of the world, if I would care that much about the microplastics. I might just be like, I need to eat. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'd care about the, how organic things were. But, it's a good point to be made in the kind of things that you can have around that, you might not look at. But if something were to happen, they got to be ready and they got to be stored properly.
Exactly. And yeah, that's exactly right. You nailed it. I've done nothing to add to that.
So in terms of the other things, you're in your home, you have books about how to fortify your own shelter in your own home. What if something happens to the home, and what do you do for shelter? Like, what would be your first thing if people are like, okay, listen, my home was just flooded or a tornado just ripped my home away. A lot of people dealing with this in the aftermath of 2 major hurricanes. People are still very much struggling, and they're stuck and they're in mudslides, and, they're in desperate situations they never thought they'd be in. But if your own home and your structure is wiped out, where is the first place that someone should go in that situation?
Well, let's define shelter first. Shelter obviously is a house. It can be a tent. It can be a car. Shelter is clothing. when we say shelter in a survival circumstance, we are talking about anything that protects your corporeal body from the elements. So clothing is shelter. A fire is the best shelter, warmth. And fire is good for cooking food. It's good for purifying water. It's good for signaling. When I have my escape and evasion kit and when I'm doing survival operations, fire is always the most important thing because it has a multitude of uses. It warms me. It's shelter. It purifies water. It cooks food. It signals people, where I'm at, smoke signals or the fire. It keeps wild animals away. So shelter, when we're talking about shelter, you just need to protect your physical body. So your car is shelter. If you can drive away from the situation that you're at, you still have shelter. We're just protecting our physical body from the elements. Which
is obviously of the foremost importance in food and water.
Yes.
You brought up boiling water. So in a situation, a lot of people would have a pack or a supply of bottled water that they would have there. That's kind of like a standard thing that they tell you to have in your home in that case. If you don't have that, if you're in a survival situation and you need to find water, a lot of people would be hard pressed to know what to do. It's like they don't have water. We've seen the survival shows. We've seen the movies. It's like, do you drink out of the streams? Do you drink your own urine? What does one do? And what do they have to what do they have to be aware of? If they think that they're survivalists, but they don't really know, can they get themselves into danger?
Try to, yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that you need to be very careful of. And Bear Grylls does this all the time. He teaches very dangerous things to people that will get you killed. But when it comes to water, there are two things we need to worry about, concern ourselves with when it comes to sourcing drinking water that's safe. One is the cleanliness of the water, like the mud and the brackishness, just the dirt that's in the water. And that is not what's going to kill you. What's going to kill you are the paramecium and the amoebas and all those little things that are creepy crawlies that are swimming around in your water supply. So you need to deal with those. You need to kill those, eliminate those, and you also need to get the dirt and the nastiness out so you have something that's tolerable to drink.
Will drinking dirt kill you?
No.
Okay.
But the paramecium and the amoebas in the dirt are what's going to get you. So when you're doing survival, there's a lot of different ways to purify water. What I suggest to people in situations like this, kind of a prepping situation, Berkey makes fantastic filters. I've used them in Africa to purify water from the Mwaleshi River. They're fantastic purifiers. They clean the water and they purify all the nastiness out. This life straws, you can get them on Amazon for a pack of 5 for like $30, and it's just a straw that you drink out of from a water source, and it purifies the water, cleans it and purifies
it.
Yeah, right. When I was doing manhunt, I'd wear one around my neck, and if I was in someplace that had a lot of water, and I could just drink water.
Does that work with ocean water?
No, it won't work with ocean.
Okay.
With the saline, with the salt in ocean, you never want to drink the salt water. That will put you right over into. People get desperate and drink salt water, and that kills them. That's when you're done. So drinking your urine, never do that. Urine people want to do that to kind of show off on survival shows and stuff, but your body's eliminating that urine for a reason. And if you're at the point in your situation where you're forced to drink your urine, you're going to be very, very dehydrated. So what that means is your urine is going to be very concentrated with all the stuff that your body is trying to eliminate. Right. And the moisture content is going to be the very minimum because your body's trying to conserve moisture, but get rid of all of those toxins. And so it's going to be very, very toxic. It is sanitary. It's clean, but those are all toxins your body's trying to eliminate. Don't put them back in your body. Drinking your urine is a terrible idea.
Why do you think that's the first go-to in a lot of the survival shows? Because that's kind of the first thing, if you're somebody who just lightly watches survival shows and is aware of them, the first thing you think of is them drinking their own pee.
Exactly. It's some dude wanting to show off is really
I can't imagine showing up by drinking your own pee.
It's a flex.
I guess so. Men are different creatures. Men are certainly different creatures. Let's talk about weapons. Because, you're in your home, and if you're worried about, the zombies coming, that's, one weapon of choice might be to fend off the zombies. But if you're talking about in a survival situation where things aren't trying to kill you, but maybe animals, creatures are trying to kill you, what weapons outside of firearms would you suggest people have in their homes?
Well, firearms are obviously the best go-to, and I talk about what you should have in your house. My favorite is just a good pump-action shotgun. I mean, there are a few things I noticed when I was in Afghanistan. Everybody spoke red dot. I put a red dot on anybody. If they didn't speak English, they knew exactly what that meant when there's a laser on their forehead. And the same thing with a racking shotgun. You hear the sound of a shotgun chambering a shell, everybody in the world knows exactly what that means and respects it. So those are excellent deterrents to have in your house. As far as weapons outside of firearms, it depends on the person. Everything I say depends on the person's skills, abilities, budget, and what they know. Like, I know a lot of ways to do things with primitive skills when I'm out in the wilderness. And so there are things that I can eliminate if I plan on using my primitive skills to accomplish those goals. But having tools to do those are fantastic. I mean, a good fixed blade knife, it's not really a weapon, but as far as a tool goes, that's my go-to tool. The one tool for survival is a solid, big fixed blade knife, not a folder. A big fixed blade knife is the best survival tool out there. Weapons for survival situations and for prepping situations, it's not so much the weapon. The best weapon is the one you have. The second best weapon is the one you're most comfortable with.
Right.
Everything else is just down the line. But the most important thing is frangible ammunition. Frangible ammunition is something we use in the SEAL teams when we're doing house runs, because one of the most dangerous things, I had a kid I put through training that was killed by this, is shooting back on your team, or bullets, taking strange turns and moving through a house. I mean, the rounds that we use, fully jacketed ammunition, will go through all kinds of walls and windows and keep going through multiple houses. So a frangible round is a bullet that's actually compressed powder, usually compressed copper and lead. And so it's deadly. If it hits flesh, it will destroy flesh. But if it hits wood or anything solid, it's frangible. It turns into dust. So if I'm in my house and I've got, my kids or my wife or whoever in my house, and I'm, got my weapon, and there's somebody invading or something is happening, I have to engage with a weapon. I don't want to be thinking the whole time of my geometry and where I'm shooting, so I'm keeping everybody safe. I want to engage the target and then move on from there. So with frangible ammunition, I know that I'm not going to be putting rounds places I don't want them to be. So that's very important for people.
That certainly is, especially people that are not experienced with a firearm and they're in their situation. Yeah. I want to ask you too, just with the world that we live in now, there's a lot of people in a lot of cities in America, and they're just fearful, and maybe not of a natural disaster, maybe not of the zombies coming, but they're fearful of their fellow man, and they're fearful of people breaking into their homes. And I know that for women, especially right now, we've got a migrant crisis, and I don't want to say that it's just migrants committing crimes. It's not, but we have several high-profile cases where women are running or women are in their own homes, and especially for women, we feel very vulnerable right now. And a lot of women, whether you tell them to or not, they're not going to have a firearm. They just won't do it, right? And I want your advice for those women who are not going to have a shotgun and they might not even have a giant knife in their home. If they're in a situation in their home where an intruder is coming in, what is the first go-to weapon that you would recommend that they use to defend themselves? Someone that's the stature of someone like myself. Like, we're not WWE, right? We're just like little women who can get feisty if we need to. But what would you suggest we could fashion something out of to protect ourselves?
Be comfortable with firearms.
So if they don't have a firearm, though, I know, but I'm just saying, like, is there something that you would suggest? Like, hey, someone's coming in, you don't have that at your disposal. Do you use a lamp? Do you use,
whatever
a pot?
You're most comfortable with. But the problem with that, Tommy, is that the firearms are a great equalizer. If I'm coming after you, I'm 200 pounds. I'm going to overpower you. Unless you have a weapon, that equalizes everything. That's what drives me crazy about people that are so anti-gun, is that you don't understand that the gun is the equalizer. The gun is for you. The gun is for you. The gun isn't for me. The gun is so that you're now equal with me in a physical altercation, or not even equal. You're able to impose your will, which is your physical safety, on me. And that's the most important thing. So you need to have something that's going to be able to equalize the size, weight, strength, aggression gap. And really, I can't think of anything else. I mean, everything else is going to be blunt force or bladed, unless you're very well trained, which may be the case. If you're not trained, then you need something that's going to eliminate the size and strength disparity. And there's really nothing that can do that. If you have a lamp or a baseball bat, still, you probably get a couple of good shots of me. Unless you get a really good shot, I'm going to take it away from you. And
right.
I'm going to use it on you. And so the only thing I'm not going to be able to take away and use on you is a gun, really, because you have a standoff. So you need something that gives you a standoff.
So say you're in a home invasion situation
Right.
and you're not ready to fight. You're hoping that they won't know that you're home. Would you recommend fleeing or would you recommend hiding?
I'd flee. I'd get out.
Flee.
For sure. And in fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because something that I talk about and that I do in my own home and that I tell people when they ask these sort of questions is that in your house, you should always plan. It's a very easy mental exercise, but just kind of draw out your floor plan of your house and put weapons and exits and furniture in places so that no matter what entrance someone comes in, they are never in between an exit or a weapon and you. So no matter what door somebody comes in, I'm able to get to a weapon and I'm able to get out. Nobody's blocking me from what I need.
That's a good idea as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, those are common sense things that people think, like they'll never be in that situation, but you never think it's going to be you until it's you.
Until it's you. And then it's too late.
Right. What are some other common sense tips that you'd recommend, especially for families that we can read about in your book more in detail?
Communication. That's a big one. I mean, there's chapter after chapter on all kinds of things on my book, from booby traps to noisemakers to early warning systems, but communications. If the grid goes down and these little, pocket computers that we're so dependent on no longer work, how am I going to call my wife? How am I going to call my dad? How am I going to call my mom and make sure they're okay, give them rendezvous plans, connect with them, do whatever it is that we need to do? If that doesn't work, nobody knows what to do. So how are you going to communicate? That's a big thing. That's a huge thing.
Would you recommend for families outside of their own home, like extended families, if everything were to go down, having a general meeting place?
Yeah.
Like it's the apocalypse, right? And you need to get to your family and they live somewhere else than you do. Would you recommend having like a central location for everybody?
Have a plan for sure, which is what you're alluding to. And part of a plan will be what's called a rally point, which is if everything goes to shit, this is where we're going to rally up. And in the SEAL teams, we did that all the time. If we're going in and we're going to hit a house or something like that, as we're moving towards the door, the lieutenant would send up a rally point signal, and like this tree right here or this hill, and the rally point signal tells us that if everything goes to shit and you have any other way to communicate or the plan is gone, we're going to come back here. The survivors are going to rally up right here. We're going to go from there. So rally points are definitely part of a contingency plan. But really, we want to have good plans of a primary, a secondary, and tertiary plan that don't go to where we're having to rally up at random locations. I want to be able to make communications with you. Like for me, and I still have some family out on the West Coast, and for them, the first primary thing is we have Starlink at our house because if a shit goes down, if the satellites aren't hit, all of Elon's satellites, I'm still going to be able to make phone calls using Wi-Fi calling, and I'm still going to have internet at my house. That's very important. The second thing is we use Garmin InReach. When I was doing Manhunt, there was a company called DeLorme, and they had these little locator beacons that would go in my pack so that they would able to. I got lost, or I didn't get lost. They lost me in Africa, and there were lions coming after me, and the whole producing staff freaked out. And after that, they had location beacons on me every time I was in the field. But then Garmin bought the company DeLorme, and so now some of Garmin's, I should have brought mine, Garmin's communication devices will have an emergency SOS button that will go to a fully staffed SOS field operations
kind of like
center.
A life alert.
Exactly.
For the elderly.
Exactly. But it will, so you can be in the middle of the ocean, Indian Ocean, and hit that button, and they'll know exactly where you're at and be able to send rescue forces. But what's even cooler is that I can text, and I can text to phones using that same Iridium satellite network, so that I'll be able to, using the satellite network, which the government is on. So I don't think if they take it down, they're going to take down the Iridium network. And it's a north-south polar orbit, so it's pretty stable. So the Iridium network, I'll be able to text my family on the West Coast and communicate with them and get location beacons from them, know where they're at. They'll know where I'm at, and we'll be able to. I mean, it's like Nokia 9000 texting, where your thumbs are going to get tired.
Hey, if you need it, it'll work.
Exactly, it's communication.
The Gen Zers might have a real struggle with this, though, because they don't even know what a Nokia is. So
they wouldn't even know.
Best of luck to them. If TikTok goes down, they're in trouble.
They're done.
Right.
But that's our secondary. So we have Iridium satellite networks, and then tertiary. I mean, everyone talks about ham radio, and ham radio is absolutely the best, but it requires a lot of experience, a lot of of tweak. You have to know what you're doing to really make reliable ham radio communications. But there is a ham radio network of dudes that live for this kind of stuff. If you can get in touch with them, they will send your message anywhere in the world. And I know how to communicate with my radio stuff. So I will be in charge of communicating to the ham radio network, getting that message out to the West Coast and getting it to the people that need to get it. That's my personal plan.
And all of this, all these tips and these techniques are all in your book.
All in that.
And, we talked about this briefly before the show, but there are counterfeits of this book out there. And I want my viewers to be able to get the real deal, not the Chinese knockoff. So where do they go to get it from you to make sure that they're not being sold something that's fake?
Thank you. Bugginginguide.com.
Bugginginguide.com. Is there a hyphen in that?
I know. It's just bugginginguide.com. One word.com. And I'm sorry, you'll have to scroll for miles to get to the bottom of the page, but then you can buy it now. There's a couple free survival books that come in digital format if you buy it through that location. They're selling my book with my name on the title and my picture on the back on Walmart.com, and they're Chinese counterfeits. They'll get it in 3 weeks if you get it from China, and it'll be like a photocopied version of my book. It's terrible.
Is it safe to buy it on Amazon?
Amazon has the counterfeits as well. I have it on Amazon, but you have to get it through my author page.
Okay.
You'll have the same thing.
That's very important for folks, because a lot of people just go straight to Amazon, and I don't want them to be getting these counterfeits.
You'll see exactly that exact cover and my photo on the back on Amazon, and it's not my book. You have to make sure that it's my author page, Joel Lambert, and that book linked to it.
Thank you for telling us that, because a lot of folks, listen, right now, this is a great gift. Because really people need it. You just don't know. I'm excited to read through it because I feel like my survival skills are very subpar. But I've learned a lot today. And you know what? Don't drink your own urine. And that's a flex that you don't want to do.
I'll leave you with that.
Joel, I've been a follower of yours and a fan of yours for many years. Thank you for spending so much time. I wish we actually had longer. Please come back because I have a lot of questions for you when we have a round 2 of this. But I hope everyone goes and gets this book because it's an excellent one. Make sure, folks, that you are getting the correct one. Make sure you go to the author page on Amazon or to the website that we mentioned because that's the only place that you're going to get the real deal and you want the real deal. Joel, thank you for stopping by. We really appreciate you and all the tips that you've given us. And I hope that you will come back and talk to us more about all of your life experiences because I have many more questions.
It's a sure thing. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks so much. Thank you, folks, for watching this very special episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless, a survival episode. You never know when you're going to need to be able to survive something like a Democrat administration. You just don't know. Also, please go to our YouTube page at Tomi Lahren is Fearless so you can like and support and watch full episodes. Also available on Fox Nation. We'll see you live Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. As always, from Nashville, God bless. And take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.